Naomi Carter had everything: power, beauty, and a heart locked behind gold gates. But that night, as her car cut through the blizzard, she saw something that shattered her composure. A little girl, barefoot in the snow, trembling beneath a broken streetlight. The storm raged between them, yet their eyes met, one carrying the weight of the world, the other pleading for it to stop. And in that instant, everything changed. The snowstorm screamed against the windows as Naomi Carter's car glided down the desolate mountain road. Inside, warmth and silence, until the headlights caught a flicker of movement. "Stop the car," she said sharply. The driver hesitated. "Ma'am, it's dangerous. Now!" The tires hissed against ice. Naomi leaned forward, her breath fogging the glass. There, beneath a crooked streetlight, was a small figure stumbling through the white chaos. A child. "Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from. Leave your country name in the comments below. And if you love stories about courage, loyalty, and community, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next stories." Naomi pushed open the door before the car even stopped, the wind clawing at her tailored coat. Snow bit into her cheeks, but she barely felt it. The child couldn't have been more than 8, her hair matted with frost, her lips blue. She stood barefoot, clutching a torn doll to her chest. "Hey," Naomi called softly, stepping closer. "Sweetheart, what are you doing out here?" The girl didn't respond. Her gaze flicked up, wary and distant, as if she couldn't trust what she saw. Naomi's heart tightened. I know that look, she thought. She had worn it once, on the streets of Detroit, watching cars pass, wondering why no one ever stopped. Naomi shrugged off her cashmere coat and draped it around the girl's tiny shoulders. "You're freezing. Come with me, okay?" The girl's body trembled, but she didn't pull away. Her voice came out a whisper, brittle as the wind. I waited for her. But she didn't come. Naomi knelt to meet her eyes. "Who didn't come, honey?" "My mom," the girl said, blinking slowly. "She said she'd come back before the first snow." Her lips quivered. "It's been 3 winters." Naomi's chest tightened as the blizzard howled around them. "What's your name?" "Lily." "All right, Lily," Naomi murmured. "You're safe now." But as she lifted the girl in her arms, something fell from Lily's grasp. A small silver music box, half buried in snow. Naomi reached for it, and when she opened the lid, a soft lullaby drifted through the storm. The melody hit her like a ghost from the past. Her mother used to hum that same tune when Naomi was little, before everything had gone dark. Naomi swallowed hard, clutching the child tighter as she carried her to the car. The driver opened the door, eyes wide. "We should hurry, Miss Carter. The road's icing over fast." Naomi nodded, sliding into the back seat with Lily in her arms. She pressed the girl's head against her chest, trying to share her warmth. For a moment, Naomi let herself breathe. Then crunch. Both she and the driver froze. That sound hadn't come from the car. It came from outside, beyond the lights. Naomi leaned forward, peering into the white blur. "Did you hear that?" "Yes, ma'am." Another crunch, closer now, measured, heavy. Like footsteps in the snow. Lily stirred, her small fingers clutching Naomi's sleeve. "Don't let him find me," she whispered. Naomi's blood ran cold. "Who, Lily?" The girl's eyes were wide, unfocused. "The man with the red scarf." Before Naomi could ask more, a shadow passed across the headlights, a tall figure moving slowly through the storm. Naomi's instincts screamed danger. "Lock the doors," she ordered. The driver's hand trembled as he obeyed. The car engine hummed softly, too quiet against the howling wind. Outside, the shadow stopped. And then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow taps on the window. Naomi turned her head, heart pounding. Through the frost-covered glass, she saw the faint outline of a man's face, but his eyes, they were fixed on the girl. "Go," Naomi whispered urgently. "Drive." The driver hesitated. "Ma'am?" "Now!" The car lurched forward, snow flying as the tires struggled for grip. Naomi turned once more, catching the faintest glimpse of the man's red scarf as he disappeared into the white void. Lily whimpered, curling tighter in her arms. Naomi brushed a hand over her hair, whispering, "You're safe. I've got you." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure she believed it. The music box in her pocket played faintly, its lullaby clashing with the roar of the storm, a haunting harmony of fear and fate, and far behind them, the shadow in the snow began to follow. The car sped through the storm, its headlights slicing weakly through the endless white. Naomi held Lily close, her arms numb, not from the cold, but from the weight of something she hadn't felt in years. Fear. Outside, the world blurred into darkness and snow, but inside, the air was thick with questions neither of them dared to ask. Naomi's phone buzzed in her pocket. A call from her assistant. She ignored it. The company crisis could wait. This couldn't. She glanced down at the girl resting against her. Lily's face was ghost pale, lashes trembling, her breath shallow. Naomi pressed her palm to her forehead. "Burning." "Drive faster," she said. "We need a hospital." "Yes, ma'am," the driver replied, voice strained. For a long moment, there was nothing but the engine's growl and the music box's faint lullaby, still playing, even though Naomi had closed it tightly. The melody made her chest ache. She remembered a winter much like this one, decades ago. She'd been 12, running, barefoot through a Detroit alley, clutching her baby sister's doll after their mother vanished. Back then, no one stopped for her either. No one ever did. Naomi blinked hard, shaking the memory away. She wasn't that helpless girl anymore. She was Naomi Carter, billionaire, CEO, untouchable. But tonight, she felt anything but untouchable. When the car hit a patch of ice, it skidded violently. Naomi braced herself, clutching Lily as the vehicle swerved before regaining balance. Her pulse pounded in her throat. "Careful," she barked. "I'm trying, ma'am," the driver gasped. "Visibility's gone. Look." Up ahead, through the swirling snow, faint lights flickered. A roadside motel. The old kind, with peeling paint and neon signs half broken. But it was shelter. "Pull in there," Naomi ordered. The car crept up the drive, tires crunching over frozen gravel. Naomi pushed the door open before it stopped moving and hurried inside with Lily in her arms. The lobby was dim, the smell of mildew and old coffee heavy in the air. Behind the counter, an older woman with gray curls looked up from her newspaper. "We're closed. Storms cut the power in half the rooms," she muttered. Naomi met her gaze, her tone sharp and commanding. "I'll pay double. I just need heat and water." The woman's eyes flicked to the shivering child in Naomi's arms, and her expression softened. "All right, room 7. End of the hall." Naomi nodded and hurried down the narrow hallway, boots squeaking on cracked linoleum. She laid Lily on the bed, wrapping her in blankets she found stacked in the corner. The girl's skin was clammy, her lips still pale. "Stay with me, Lily," Naomi whispered. She brushed a strand of hair from the girl's forehead. "You're safe now, okay?" Lily's eyelids fluttered. "You sound like her," she murmured. "Like who?" "My mom." Naomi froze. "What was her name?" "Grace," Lily whispered weakly. "She said she'd take me to the ocean one day, when she found enough money." "Grace." Naomi repeated the name silently, something twisting in her chest. It sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. A sudden knock startled her. Loud, 3 sharp raps. Naomi stiffened, the same rhythm as before. The motel owner's voice called faintly through the door. "Everything all right, ma'am?" Naomi hesitated. "Yes, thank you," she called back, forcing steadiness into her tone. But when she looked through the peephole, no one was there. Her pulse spiked. She turned back to Lily, who was staring at the door with wide, terrified eyes. "Was it him?" Naomi asked softly. Lily nodded, her voice trembling. He always knocks like that. Naomi sat beside her, trying to hide the dread creeping up her spine. Who is he, Lily? Tell me. The girl shook her head violently. He said if I told anyone, he'd find me. He always does. Naomi took her hand gently. He can't hurt you now, not while I'm here. Outside, the wind howled again, rattling the thin motel windows. The neon sign flickered, throwing flashes of red light across the room. For a heartbeat, Naomi thought she saw a shadow move just beyond the glass. She got up and pulled the curtain closed. Her phone buzzed again. Another call. Unknown number this time. She frowned, answered. Ms. Carter, a low male voice said, calm but cold. You have something that belongs to me. Naomi froze. Who is this? Static crackled on the line. Then, the girl. Return her. Naomi's breath hitched. What did you just say? You picked her up on the highway. That was a mistake. She swallowed hard, forcing steel into her voice. If you come near her again, I'll— Too late, the voice interrupted, almost amused. I already know where you are. The line went dead. Naomi stared at the phone, the silence heavier than the storm outside. Then faintly, the music box began to play again, its lid still closed, lying untouched on the nightstand. Lily whispered, He's coming. Naomi turned toward the window, her reflection trembling in the glass. Outside, through the white haze, a figure in a red scarf stood beneath the flickering motel sign. The red scarf was the only color in the white blur outside the window. Bright, deliberate, and wrong. It swayed gently in the wind as the man stood perfectly still, his face hidden in shadow. Naomi's pulse thundered in her ears. She moved instinctively, stepping in front of Lily. Stay behind me, she whispered. The girl's small hand clutched Naomi's coat. He found us, she breathed, her voice barely a thread. He always does. Naomi grabbed her phone again, dialing 911. The signal flickered, the screen flashing. No service. She cursed under her breath and turned to the door, locking it with trembling fingers. The storm outside intensified, shaking the walls. Snow hissed against the glass like whispers. Then came another knock. Not loud this time. Soft, deliberate. 3 times. Naomi's chest constricted. Whoever he was taunting them. She scanned the room quickly. Thin curtains, 1 window, 1 door, no back exit. Her mind raced. She had survived corporate boardrooms full of predators in designer suits, clawed her way to the top of a world that tried to crush her. But this was different. This was real fear. She grabbed the motel phone, hoping for a landline connection. Dead. Then the front desk phone rang. The shrill sound cut through the storm's roar. Naomi jumped, her heart hammering. The old woman's voice came over the intercom, shaky and confused. Miss Carter, there's a man asking for you. Says you forgot something. Naomi's throat went dry. Don't let him in, she hissed. Do you hear me? Lock the door and— But the line cut out. Silence. Then a sound in the hall. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming closer. Lily pressed her face into Naomi's coat, trembling. He took my mom, she whispered. Naomi froze. What did you say? Lily looked up at her, eyes wide and wet. The man with the red scarf. He came for her one night. I hid in the closet. I heard her scream, and then he told me I'd be next. Naomi's breath caught. Lily. How long ago? 3 years. A shiver ran through Naomi, though the room was warm now. And you've been running since then? Lily nodded, silent tears streaking her cheeks. He finds me every winter. I don't know how, but he does. Naomi's mind spun. The man had called her phone, meaning he knew her name. That wasn't random. He wasn't just after Lily. He knew who Naomi Carter was. A sharp bang jolted her, something heavy slamming against the door. Naomi flinched, pulling Lily back. "Go hide in the bathroom," she ordered. "Now!" Lily hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you. Go." The girl scurried into the tiny bathroom, shutting the door quietly behind her. Naomi's eyes darted around the room until they landed on a metal lamp. She unplugged it, gripping it like a weapon. Another bang. The wood cracked. Naomi steadied her breath. "You picked the wrong woman to scare," she muttered. The lock gave way with a sharp snap. The door creaked open an inch, the chain the only thing holding it shut. Snowflakes drifted in through the gap. Then, a hand reached through, the same red scarf dangling from the wrist. Pale fingers groping for the latch. Naomi swung the lamp down with every ounce of strength she had. It struck the hand hard. A muffled grunt. The hand withdrew. For a second, all she could hear was her own heartbeat. Then, silence again. Naomi waited, breath ragged. 10 seconds, 20. Nothing. Slowly she edged toward the door, peering through the crack. No one. Only the swirling snow and the faint flicker of the motel's neon sign. She exhaled shakily, closing the door fully and sliding the bolt back in place. "He's gone," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. But just as she turned toward the bathroom, she froze. The music box on the nightstand had started to play again, soft, slow, haunting. And this time, the lid was open. Naomi's blood ran cold. She hadn't touched it. "Lily," she whispered, moving to the bathroom door. "Sweetheart, stay in there, okay?" No response. She pushed the door open. Empty. The window above the sink was open, the cold wind whipping through the room. Tiny footprints trailed across the tile, out into the storm. Naomi's heart lurched. "Lily!" she shouted, running back toward the main door, yanking it open. The wind howled into the room, nearly knocking her back. She stumbled into the snow, scanning frantically. "Lily!" No answer. Only the storm. Then faintly, through the roar of the wind, the lullaby. The same one, playing somewhere out there in the white void? Naomi followed the sound, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her boots sinking deep into the snow. The melody grew louder. And there, just ahead, a flicker of color. Red. The scarf. It lay tangled in the snow beside a small figure collapsed on the ground. Naomi dropped to her knees. "Lily!" The girl was unconscious. The music box clutched tight in her hand. Naomi gathered her into her arms. But before she could stand, a voice whispered behind her, deep, calm. "You shouldn't have taken her." Naomi turned slowly, her heart slamming against her ribs. The man stood just a few feet away, his eyes dark and unblinking beneath the storm. "She's not yours," he said softly. "She never was." Naomi held Lily tighter. "Who are you?" He tilted his head slightly, as if studying her. Then, with a faint smile, he said, "Ask her about the fire." And before Naomi could speak, he vanished into the blizzard. The wind swallowed him whole. Naomi stared into the storm, her pulse trembling. The fire. She looked down at Lily, the child's face pale against her coat. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed faintly, growing closer. But Naomi didn't move, because in that moment, she realized something terrifying. The man hadn't been chasing Lily. He'd been leading Naomi to her. The sirens grew louder, slicing through the storm, but Naomi barely heard them. Her mind was spinning, replaying the man's last words over and over. Ask her about the fire. Snow whipped against her face as she stumbled back toward the motel, Lily limp in her arms. By the time she reached the entrance, the flashing red and blue lights of an approaching police car bled through the blizzard. "Over here!" Naomi shouted, her voice hoarse. 2 officers rushed toward her, helping her carry the girl inside. One of them, a young woman with tired eyes, checked Lily's pulse. "She's breathing. We'll call an ambulance." Naomi nodded, trying to steady her trembling hands. "Ma'am, are you injured?" the other officer asked. "No," she said automatically. Her gaze drifted toward the window where the red scarf had been. The snow was already covering any trace of the man. "Did you see anyone out there?" she demanded. "A man, tall, wearing a red scarf?" The officer frowned. "We didn't pass anyone on the road, ma'am. You're the only people for miles." Naomi's jaw tightened. "He was there? He spoke to me." The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. "The storm's making visibility almost zero. Could have been shadows or—" "No," Naomi snapped. "It wasn't shadows. He said something. Something about a fire." At that, the younger officer's expression flickered. "A fire?" "Yes," Naomi said slowly. "Does that mean something?" The officer hesitated. "There was a case, a few years ago. A fire outside. The city limits. A woman died. Her name was Grace Holloway." Naomi froze. The name hit her like a blow. "Grace?" "That's right," the officer said, checking his notes. "Her daughter disappeared afterward. No leads. The house was completely destroyed." Naomi's breath caught. She turned to look at Lily, pale, fragile, unconscious. That was her mother. The officers exchanged wary glances. "You're sure?" Naomi nodded faintly. "She told me her mother's name. Grace." The younger officer's radio crackled. "Ambulance en route. ETA 5 minutes." Naomi sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. "Ask her about the fire." The words echoed through her skull. She looked up at Lily again. The child stirred slightly, mumbling in her sleep. "Mom, don't open the door. Please." Naomi leaned closer. "Lily, can you hear me?" But the girl didn't wake. The music box, still in Naomi's pocket, began to hum faintly. She took it out and opened it, staring at the delicate spinning ballerina inside. Beneath the winding key, a faint engraving glinted under the lamplight. "To NC, always together." Naomi's heart stopped. Those initials, her own. Her hands shook as she turned the box over, memories clawing their way to the surface. A little girl crying in a smoky apartment, her mother's arms carrying her through fire. A baby's cry from another room. Then silence. She hadn't remembered that night in decades. Until now. The door burst open again as the paramedics rushed in. They lifted Lily carefully onto a stretcher. Naomi followed, dazed, as they carried her to the ambulance. The young officer approached Naomi, voice low. "Ma'am, do you know that girl?" Naomi hesitated, staring through the snow at the small figure being loaded into the ambulance. "I don't know," she whispered. "But somehow, I think she knows me." As the ambulance sped off toward the hospital, Naomi climbed into her car, her mind a storm of its own. To NC, always together. Who could have written that? Back in the city, hours later, Naomi sat alone in the sterile hospital waiting room. The blizzard had begun to fade outside, leaving the world washed clean but eerily quiet. A nurse approached. "She's stable now. Mild hypothermia, but she'll recover." Naomi exhaled slowly. "Can I see her?" "Of course." Naomi entered the dim hospital room. Lily lay asleep beneath white sheets, her small hand resting atop the music box. Naomi sat beside her, eyes tracing the faint burn scar that curved along the girl's wrist. The nurse lingered by the doorway. "She's a brave one," said her mom told her to keep running if the fire ever came again. Naomi's head snapped up. "What fire?" The nurse blinked, startled. "That's what she said." "Thought maybe it was a nightmare." Naomi turned back to Lily, her heart aching. "No," she whispered. "It wasn't a nightmare." As she brushed a strand of hair from the girl's face, Lily stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "You came back," she murmured faintly. Naomi's throat tightened. What do you mean, sweetheart? Lily blinked sleepily. Mom said you'd find me one day. Said you'd know when you heard the song. Naomi froze. Your mother. Grace. She said that? Lily nodded weakly. She told me before the fire. She said her sister would come. The world tilted. Naomi's breath caught in her chest. Her sister? Lily's voice faded into a whisper. She said your name. Naomi. The room went silent. Naomi sat there, motionless, her hands trembling. Memories she'd buried deep ripped open like old wounds. The adoption papers, the family she'd lost, the baby sister who disappeared after the fire, Grace Holloway, her sister, and Lily, her niece. The truth crashed over her in waves. The fire hadn't just been a tragedy. It was the beginning of everything. Her rise, her loneliness, her hardened heart. And now, fate had brought her face to face with the last living piece of the family she'd lost. Naomi reached for Lily's hand, tears finally breaking free. I found you, she whispered. I promise I won't lose you again. But outside, unnoticed by both of them, a man in a red scarf stood in the hospital parking lot, watching through the window. He lifted his phone, pressed a button, and whispered, She knows? Then he turned and disappeared into the night. Morning came gray and hollow, the hospital blanketed in a quiet that felt too fragile to touch. Naomi sat in the chair beside Lily's bed, still in the same clothes from the night before. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she didn't care. Her eyes stayed fixed on the little girl. The steady rise and fall of her chest was the only thing that grounded her. She was her sister's daughter, Grace's child. Naomi had spent her entire adult life burying the pain of that fire, building an empire to prove she didn't need anyone. But now, the ghosts she'd run from had found her, and they wore a red scarf. A knock at the door pulled her back to the present. A man in a gray suit entered, flashing a badge. Detective Callan Pierce, ma'am. Mind if we talk? Naomi straightened, wary. About the man in the red scarf? Pierce nodded. And about the child. He sat across from her, flipping open a small notebook. You said you picked her up during the storm? Yes, Naomi replied carefully. She was alone, freezing. She mentioned her mother's name, Grace Holloway. Pierce's pen paused. That name's been cold for years. You realize you just reopened one of the strangest unsolved cases in this state. Naomi frowned. What do you mean? Pierce leaned back, studying her. 3 years ago, Grace Holloway's house burned down. Investigators found traces of accelerant. Gasoline. Not an accident. Her body was found near the door, like she was trying to protect someone. But the daughter was gone. No remains, no trace. We assumed she ran. Naomi swallowed hard. She said a man with a red scarf took her mother. Pierce nodded grimly. We've heard that before. Naomi's brows furrowed. Before? The detective flipped through his file, pulling out a photograph, old, grainy, a man's silhouette in the snow, a red scarf fluttering. There were sightings after the fire. Each year, same season, same weather pattern, a blizzard. Someone's been watching that property every winter. Locals called him the Ghost of Holloway Road. Naomi shivered. You think he's real? Pierce met her gaze. I think whoever he is, he's still out there, and I think he knew you'd find her. Her blood ran cold. He called me, on my private number. Pierce's pen froze midair. Then this isn't random, Miss Carter. He wanted you involved. Naomi looked toward Lily, still asleep, her small hand resting protectively on the music box. She said her mom told her I'd come, that I'd hear the song and know. Pierce tilted his head. That's an unusual music box she's got there. Naomi opened it. The familiar tune filled the room, soft but haunting. It's engraved, she said quietly, showing him the underside. Pierce squinted. To NC, always together. You recognize that? Naomi hesitated. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. It was mine. My mother gave it to me the night before our house burned down. The detective's expression shifted. Shock, then sympathy. You mean? Naomi nodded slowly. Grace Holloway was my sister. A long silence settled between them, broken only by the faint ticking of the wall clock. Pierce finally spoke. That means this isn't just about the girl. Whoever's stalking her, he's tied to you too. Naomi stared at the floor, her mind spinning. The fire was ruled an accident, she murmured. Not anymore, Pierce said grimly. Maybe someone wanted to erase your family, and now that he knows the girl survived... He let the implication hang. Naomi clenched her fists. Then he's coming for her again. Pierce nodded. And maybe for you. At that moment, Lily stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused, but alert. Naomi immediately moved to her side. Hey, sweetheart, how are you feeling? Lily blinked, then reached weakly for Naomi's hand. Where's the man? He's gone, Naomi said softly. You're safe now. Lily shook her head. He's never gone. Her gaze drifted toward the window. He said fire always finds its way back. Naomi's pulse quickened. What does that mean, Lily? The girl looked at her solemnly. He said the fire started because of you. The words hit like a knife. Naomi froze, her throat closing. What? He told Mom that you were the reason it happened, that you took something that belonged to him. Naomi's mind flashed back to that night, the screaming, the smoke, her mother's desperate hands shoving her out the window. She'd never known what started the blaze, only that when she woke up in the hospital, her family was gone. Pierce stepped closer. Ms. Carter, do you remember anyone unusual around that time? Someone who might have wanted to hurt your family? Naomi closed her eyes, forcing herself to dig through decades of buried memory. Faces, voices, deals, none of it clear, until one image surfaced, a man in her mother's kitchen, arguing, a red scarf on the counter, her mother crying. Naomi opened her eyes, pale. He was there that night. Pierce straightened. Who? I don't know his name, she said slowly, her voice shaking. But I remember his face. He worked for my father. He said something about a debt that would be paid in blood. Lily whispered. That's what he told Mom, too. The detective nodded grimly. Then we're not dealing with a random stalker. This man's been tied to your family for decades. Naomi's jaw set. Then we end it. Pierce gave a small nod. We'll assign protection, but I need your cooperation, Miss Carter. We'll reopen the case, and I'll need you both in safe housing until we know who he is. Naomi looked at Lily, this fragile link to her past, this child who carried her sister's eyes. I'll do whatever it takes, Pierce rose. Good. I'll have someone escort you to a safe house tonight. Until then, stay here. Don't leave the floor. When he left, Naomi sat back down beside Lily. The room felt too quiet, too still. The snow had stopped, but the world outside remained colorless, as if holding its breath. Lily shifted under the blanket. Will he come again? She whispered. Naomi reached for her hand. If he does, he'll have to go through me first. Lily's lips trembled. Mom said you were brave. Naomi smiled sadly. I wasn't. Not back then, but I will be now. As she spoke, the monitor beside Lily flickered for a moment. Just a blip. Nothing more. But outside the window, across the hospital parking lot, a single red scarf hung from a lamppost, fluttering in the cold morning wind. And beneath it, a burned envelope lay half buried in snow, marked with a single initial, C. The safe house was quiet. Too quiet. Nestled at the edge of the woods outside the city, it was a sprawling cabin with tall windows and a stone fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. The snow around it had turned to slush, the storm finally exhausted. But the silence that followed felt heavier than the wind itself. Detective Pierce's men had swept the property twice. Security cameras had been installed. Motion sensors blinked faintly near the door. And yet, as Naomi Carter stood by the window that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. Lily was asleep upstairs, curled beneath a heavy quilt. Naomi could hear her soft breathing through the baby monitor they'd set up. It was a fragile rhythm, the kind that made you terrified to blink in case it stopped. Naomi poured herself a cup of coffee and sat near the fire. She'd made 100 deals with men who'd kill for less than what she was worth, but none of those rooms had made her feel this kind of fear. Because this wasn't about business, it was about blood. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Unknown, nice place, cozy. Naomi's grip on the phone tightened. "No," she whispered, scanning the windows. She called Pierce immediately. "Detective, he's found us." Pierce's voice was calm but sharp. "Slow down. What happened?" "He texted me. He knows where we are. Do not engage. Stay inside. We're tracing the signal now." Naomi hung up and went to the front door, checking the locks. Everything was secure. But when she turned back toward the living room, her heart stopped. The music box sat open on the coffee table. She hadn't brought it downstairs. Its lullaby played softly, echoing through the cabin. Sweet, delicate, wrong. Naomi approached it slowly, every step an effort. The ballerina turned in a lazy circle, but something glinted beneath it. She reached down and lifted the spinning bass. Underneath, wedged in the mechanism, was a tiny scrap of paper. In elegant handwriting. "You left her once. Will you leave her again?" Naomi's stomach twisted. Her fingers trembled as she grabbed the poker from beside the fireplace and moved toward the stairs. "Lily," she called, voice tight. No answer. She climbed quickly, her pulse pounding. The hallway light flickered as she reached the top. Lily's door was half open, shadows stretching across the floor. Naomi pushed it wider. The bed was empty. "Lily." Her voice broke through the silence, echoing through the house. She checked the closet. Empty. The bathroom. Empty. The window. Open. Cold air gusted in. Footprints in the snow below led into the forest. Naomi's body moved before her mind could catch up. She threw on her coat, grabbed a flashlight, and ran outside, shouting the girl's name into the night. "Lily, where are you?" Her breath came out in clouds as she followed the prints, the beam of her flashlight bouncing wildly across the trees. The forest was thick, the moonlight silvering the branches. Every sound, the creak of snow, the crack of ice, felt too close. Then faintly, music. The lullaby. Naomi turned toward the sound and ran. The music grew louder, echoing eerily through the trees. She burst into a small clearing and froze. Lily stood there, barefoot in the snow again, her thin nightgown whipping in the wind. She was staring at something just beyond the circle of light. "Lily!" Naomi cried, rushing toward her. "Sweetheart, what are you doing? You have to come back!" The girl turned slowly, her eyes glassy, her lips moving soundlessly at first. Then she whispered, "He said I should show you." Naomi stopped short. "Show me what?" Lily pointed toward the trees. A shape emerged from the darkness, tall, motionless. The red scarf was unmistakable. Naomi's flashlight trembled in her hand. "Stay away from her!" she shouted. The man took one step forward, his face still hidden. "You shouldn't have come back, Naomi," he said softly, voice carrying easily through the still night. "You should have let the past burn." Naomi's pulse pounded. "Who are you? What do you want from us?" He smiled faintly. "You don't remember, do you?" Naomi blinked through the wind and snow. "Remember what?" "Your father's debt," he said. "The night he promised me something precious in exchange for my silence." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, you do," the man whispered, He promised me your sister. Naomi's stomach turned to ice. You're lying. The man's tone remained calm, almost tender. He couldn't pay what he owed. So I took Grace, but she tried to run. She tried to hide the child. The fire was her doing, an act of desperation. But she failed. Naomi's heart hammered. You killed her. He tilted his head. No, Naomi, you did. Your father's sins burned through your whole family. You just didn't know it. Naomi took a step forward, shielding Lily behind her. You don't get to twist this. The man smiled, faintly, like a shadow amused by the light. And yet here you are again, saving a child who carries the same blood, the same curse. The wind rose suddenly, throwing snow between them. Naomi used the moment, grabbed Lily, and turned to run. Go, baby, run, she shouted. They tore through the forest, Naomi's flashlight bouncing wildly. Behind them, a low chuckle carried on the wind. Run all you like, the man's voice called. The fire will find you again. A faint glow appeared through the trees ahead. The cabin. Naomi pushed harder, bursting through the back door and locking it behind them. Lily was sobbing, clutching Naomi's coat. Naomi dropped to her knees and held her tight. I've got you, I promise. The phone rang. She froze, staring at the glowing screen on the table. Private number. With shaking hands, she answered. The man's voice was soft, almost kind. You can't save her from what's already burning inside. Naomi slammed the phone down, rage and terror twisting together inside her. He wants us afraid, she hissed. But before she could say more, the lights flickered. Then went out. Complete darkness. Lily whimpered. Naomi pulled her close, whispering, Don't move. And then, through the blackness, the music box began to play again, not in the living room. From upstairs, Naomi pressed Lily tightly against her chest, listening to the faint, haunting melody that floated down from upstairs. Each note of the music box made her blood run cold. She had carried this tune in her memory for decades, never realizing it was tied to the girl, to Grace, to everything she had lost. Stay behind me, Naomi whispered. Lily nodded, burying her face in Naomi's coat. The stairs creaked under Naomi's weight as she ascended, every step deliberate. The music grew louder, clearer, closer. The air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. At the top, the hallway was shrouded in darkness. The moonlight filtering through the windows cast long shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. And there, at the end of the hall, the man in the red scarf stood motionless. Naomi froze. Who are you? She demanded, her voice firm despite the fear clawing at her chest. The man tilted his head, his face half hidden in shadow. I am the keeper of debts, he said softly, almost mournfully. The one your father swore to, and failed. Naomi's fists clenched. You're lying. Whatever your story is, it doesn't justify what you did to Grace, or Lily. He stepped forward slowly, his presence overwhelming. I did what was promised. Your father promised me a life in exchange for silence. Grace tried to save the girl, but she failed. And the fire was necessary. Naomi's eyes narrowed. Necessary? You burned her alive. No, he said calmly. She chose to fight. That night, she gave her life so the child could live. She protected her. You are here because of her sacrifice. Naomi's mind raced. The music box, engraved to NC. Always together. The lullaby her mother sang, everything was connected. Grace had left a message, a thread for Naomi to follow. And now you've come back, the man continued, voice low and steady. But you cannot save her from what's already destined. Naomi's anger flared, burning hotter than fear. Destined? No. I will not let you manipulate her like you did my sister. She is my family. I am her family, and I will protect her. The man paused, as if studying her. You are brave. like she was. But bravery does not erase history. The debt runs through your blood. Naomi's gaze hardened. History doesn't control us. Not anymore. He tilted his head again, then slowly reached out his hand. You could join me, understand the truth fully, or continue to fight and risk losing everything. Naomi shook her head, backing toward the stairs. I don't negotiate with monsters. You're done hurting us. A sudden movement. He lunged forward, scarf flowing like a crimson ribbon. Naomi reacted instinctively, shielding Lily behind her as she grabbed a heavy candlestick from the hall table. She swung with all her strength, striking him in the shoulder. He stumbled, but his eyes glimmered with something, almost approving. You've inherited her spirit, he said quietly. And that makes you dangerous. Naomi's heart pounded, but she didn't waver. She bolted down the stairs with Lily, the man following silently, impossibly fast. When they reached the living room, Naomi grabbed the music box, holding it like a talisman. The man stopped at the threshold. She carries your blood, he whispered. You cannot protect her without embracing the truth yourself. Naomi's mind clicked. Everything from that night, the fire, her father's debts, Grace's sacrifice, the strange messages in the music box, it was all a puzzle. The fire hadn't just taken Grace. It had bound Naomi, Lily, and the man together in a web of past sins and unfulfilled promises. I understand, Naomi said firmly. The fire didn't define me. It didn't define her, and it won't define us anymore. The man regarded her silently. Then slowly, he nodded. The red scarf dropped from his shoulder, pooling on the floor. Perhaps. You are ready, he murmured. Naomi held Lily close, her voice soft but unwavering. Whatever your secrets are, whatever debts you claim, we are not yours to harm. We are free now. For a long moment, the man stood frozen. Then, with a whisper almost drowned by the wind, he turned and vanished into the darkness outside. The music box fell silent. The storm had passed completely. Naomi sank to the floor with Lily in her arms, finally allowing herself to breathe. Tears ran down her cheeks as she whispered, I'm here. I'll never leave you. Lily nestled into her, murmuring softly, I knew you'd come. Naomi's heart swelled. This wasn't just survival, it was a beginning. Grace's sacrifice, the horrors of the past, the relentless fear, they had all led her here, to this fragile moment of hope. Outside, dawn broke, soft and pink against the snow. It was quiet, clean, promising. Naomi held Lily tightly, feeling the warmth of life, love, and family coursing through her chest. The past had been full of fire and loss, but the future was theirs to build. Weeks passed, and the snow finally melted, leaving the world outside washed in soft spring light. Naomi and Lily had moved into a small, secure home, carefully chosen by Detective Pierce's team. The house was modest, but warm, a fresh start, far from the shadows of the past. Lily explored the backyard, laughter spilling like sunlight over the crisp green grass. Naomi watched her, heart swelling with relief and pride. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel hope instead of fear. At night, Lily slept peacefully, the music box resting on her bedside table. Naomi often sat beside her, tracing the delicate engraving on the lid. To NC. Always together. It was more than a keepsake. It was a promise. Grace's sacrifice, her family's pain, and the terror they had endured had all led to this fragile, luminous moment. Detective Pierce stopped by once more. She's adjusting well, he said, watching Lily swing gently on the porch. You did right by her. Naomi nodded. She's not just safe, she's home. About the man? Pierce asked carefully. Naomi met his gaze, steady. He's gone. For now, but we're prepared. We've survived the worst. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Pierce smiled faintly, leaving them to their new beginning. That evening, Naomi tucked Lily into bed. "Do you know what I've been thinking?" she asked softly. Lily shook her head sleepily. "That this is our chance," Naomi continued, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Our chance to build something real, something better. The fire can't touch us here." Lily's eyes shone, a mixture of wonder and trust. "Like magic," she whispered. Naomi laughed softly. "Yes, like magic, because sometimes miracles happen when you least expect them." For the first time in years, Naomi allowed herself to imagine a future unshadowed by fear. She saw laughter, birthdays, family dinners. She saw Lily learning, growing, happy. And in the quiet moments, she even saw herself learning to forgive. Not just those who had wronged them, but the past itself. Days turned into weeks. Naomi returned to her work, but differently now. She no longer built walls around her heart. She built bridges. She set up a foundation in Grace's name, helping children in need, ensuring that no one would ever feel as helpless as Lily once had. One afternoon, Lily ran into the living room, eyes bright. "Look, Aunt Naomi, the first flower bloomed." Naomi smiled, kneeling beside her. The tiny yellow petals opened toward the sun, delicate yet resilient. "It's beautiful," she said, "just like you." They sat together, hands intertwined, watching the sunlight dance across the floor. The past was still there, shadows and all. But now, it was no longer a chain. It was a story, one they could carry forward, reshaping it with love, trust, and courage. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Naomi felt something she hadn't in years: peace. The fire, the man, the debts, the losses, they were part of them, but they no longer controlled them. They had survived. They had each other. Outside, the wind stirred the trees, carrying a faint memory of the blizzard. But inside, in the warmth of home and heart, nothing could touch them. Naomi whispered softly, "We're together, Lily. Always together." And for the first time, they truly were.